Hello and welcome back to the Fall of the Samurai campaign Abridged, where in the last part we had two big battles with the Josei, one fighting for a castle where there was a bit of a field battle outside and we took down a couple of stacks, then another fight where we took down a couple of stacks in a straight up field engagement, losing a bunch of our own stuff in the process, but we got there in the end, and the result is that we've opened up a path to the victory region, Musashi, and here we are, moving towards it. There were some Josei troops standing outside who retreat into the castle once we arrive. We can't keep going for now, so we'll just stand nearby. I do have a few reinforcements I can muster up from the troops left behind as well, so we'll put something together there to back our guys up. In the meantime, our Imperial allies, quote unquote, not really our allies, the Numata, have attacked Musashi, so in theory we should help them because then an Imperial faction would control the victory region and that's a victory condition. But the thing is, I'd rather that Imperial faction be me, since it is a special location, the seat of the shogunate in fact, so the most important location for the enemy. So I decided to not help our allies with this attack. We can decline, the AI just goes wild and makes the attack anyway and presumably dies, and that's the end of that. So now we'll move on to our version of the same siege. Means it's going to be a bit harder because we don't have those supporting troops to sacrifice in battle, but that's fine, it's worth the cost to make sure that it's me controlling the seat of the shogunate. We do need to leave troops behind because there is the potentiality of being attacked by stuff coming down from the north over that bridge, so we can't commit everything to the attack. That said, after looking around I started thinking, well, we're not really going to get any stronger, so we either wait for this siege timer to run out, or we just attack them now. And while waiting for the timer to run out might be fine because there's not that much else to do, I thought, well, we'll go ahead and attack them this turn simply because we're filming it and it's more climactic to make a castle assault, especially because I figured Musashi would have a special map since it is the actual capital of the country. I can move in this stack of ships to help us out with some naval bombardment fire, and then we're good to go. Actually, that said, I do need to move out and clear up the matter of their tiny reinforcement army that's just about in range. I can use my tiny but bigger reinforcement army to push them away. So I'll just make things ever so slightly easier. In practice, we could have just ambushed those two units at the side of the map when they came in and that wouldn't have done anything, but this saves me the effort of doing that. So we have the advantage going in, but the enemy of course will have the castle, a high level castle as well, so we need to see what they can make of it. And there is going to be a special map, a very big special map as well, which to some extent works to our advantage, as you'll see. We start off by just shooting at the walls with our artillery, of course. We can do this with impunity. The way the castle is set up is that there's kind of like a normal castle map in the middle, and then a vast flatter section all around the outside with other castle stuff. And I'm guessing the way the AI works is it ignores all the stuff outside. So what we've got is a massive castle complex, but we're only actually attacking this kind of real smaller castle in the middle. That's handy because concentrated enemy troops are vulnerable to a bit of the old wall explosion. So we'll explode as many walls as we can, as many as our ammunition will allow. I think I use the naval bombardment on bits of the wall as well. And then we'll do the sharpshooting strategy. We can move into the castle and pretty comfortably occupy the outer sections safely. Then we snipe away at anything peering over the wall, and since there's nothing else to do with the sharpshooters, might as well just use up all the ammo and see how many kills we can get. A bit later, for whatever reason, the AI decided to be nice to me. They sent some line infantry out of the central part of the castle to come to the bit I was currently sitting around in, so turned a couple of sharpshooter units to start firing on them, and that's going to be that for those poor line infantry. I was just noting that it's a very nice day for a battle with the cherry blossoms and such. There are better places to be shot to pieces while obeying terrible orders from your stupid shogun overlord who's probably sitting up there in the castle enjoying all this. At some point we need to actually go in and get to that castle, and this is going to involve now a bunch of melee fighting. Since so much of the interior of the castle is out of line of sight, we can't snipe everything to death, and we have to force our way up the ramps in melee. Annoyingly, they've got these bow cav who are able to shoot over the top of everything and thin us out a bit as we queue for this fight. It's going to be a big long queue on the ramp. But this is just what we have to do now. We'll just wait and see what happens. There was another approach I could take towards the central capture point, but the enemy also sent troops to stop me there. This first band of troops that tried to stop me doesn't do that well because we can overpower them, but they are going to send a whole bunch of other stuff from their main blob, and we'll have two blobs of fighting going on. They'll both look something like this one right here, where we're just going to be using line infantry against melee troops and seeing what happens there. We've got a little bit of fanciness going on with some troops outflanking the blob to shoot into it, and I did try to do some things where I ran away to get the blob to come outside or something, but they just stood there. In the end, I guess I wasn't too concerned because that bounce bar's so far in our favour, we just can melee everything to death with all of our line infantry. Here's the other blob fight. This one was a bit better, I think, because I kind of had two units vaguely in formation standing on top of each other, and we got a lot of the shooting in melee thing going on, so we're getting way more kills than just our melee stats would normally allow, and the enemy just don't have enough stuff to beat this setup. That means all we need to do is wait, and a bit later, virtually everything is dead and we're still here. Here's one of their final guys, does this cool roll to avoid my bayonet slash, then gets shot to pieces. Thunderous applause of one form or another. Looks like someone else is still stabbing us to death in the bushes. Eventually, I'm sure my men will get a handle on the situation and move us on to this point, where we're going to stand on the capture point and take it. There were some enemy units here, and there are a bunch of enemy units kind of hidden in the nearby walls as well. Some glitching was going on, which means I might as well just go for the capture point rather than hunting down all of the glitched units. And we do win, the result is good enough. Managed to actually not lose any units. I kind of thought I would lose like the leading line infantry going into those grinds, but they all survived just about. And that actually is the victory condition. I wondered if it would let me win because we haven't got to the point where there's the realm divide equivalent thing, but we can win. So the fact that the mod adds so many extra regions means you get to the region count earlier than you're meant to or something, I don't know. But we've done it, the Emperor wins, we have a fireworks display, we're not going to be ruled by that one military dictator, we'll be ruled by the other one, who is presumably better in some way. We've done it, campaign 1. Now this could be the end of the series, but it did feel kind of anticlimactic. I wanted to at least see the split up between the two sides in the war. We still haven't declared whether we're going to win for the Emperor or win for ourselves. We've sort of won for the Emperor by default here, and the Shogun is apparently angry about that according to the event log. Well, too bad. So instead of ending things right now, what I decided to do is make the actual victory condition of the campaign be to at least get to the point when we are promoted to Imperial Vanguard. That means we need to beat the Shogunals down a bit more, or beat the Imperials down a bit more. I think you get those Imperial promotion points by just winning battles against people. So we could go and kill the other Imperials, but the Shogunals hate us, so we might as well kill them. So maybe we'll get the odd extra episode or two out of this series. I really want to see something interesting happen. I want to see some climactic battles and maybe actually get some late game units on the field as well. Here's me remembering to give out the commissions, which have been mostly idle for the campaign. I think I did give them out earlier, but the people I gave them to died or got wounded or something, and that got rid of them, so there it is again, some passive buffs. Anyway, moving on, the next thing we might as well do is take this other Josei territory that's nearby. And beyond that, we've got the Nagaoka, so there are plenty of targets for us to attack in this area. Pretty much everything to our north is hostile to us. So we'll just keep going and see what happens. To start with, well, it's going to be a free capture right here, as our still pretty healthy army after that decisive final battle keeps going for more decisive final battles until we find a more decisive and more final one, I suppose. While I was poking about back at home the next turn, I noticed my main trade port's been destroyed. I didn't know when that happened. I thought that I was getting away with no blockades and I was trading with people, but no, I haven't been trading with people for an unknown amount of time. So that's a lot of money lost. Unfortunately, it costs so much money to repair those ports, I actually can't do anything about it, so I need to wait a long time to get that money, and I keep spending money recruiting new units to control public order so that I can hasten the momentum on the front line, so it's not really happening. I do have, though, this new army coming in on these ships. This is the army that did the mini Fukui campaign a while back, and I said, well, I'm going to ship these guys to the other side of the map, and finally they've arrived. On the way I reinforced the fleet a bunch of times, so they got here pretty safely. Now they can come and participate in fighting the Josei. Meanwhile, our main force is going after the Nagaoka now, so here's our first battle with them. Just going to storm this field's place and take it, and you can see they do have a castle and an army just further to the west. I didn't actually intend to go after them, and that's part of the reason I slapped down a vassal here when I get the chance. What I thought I'd do is take this army and move it back east to fight the Josei to the south of Musashi and focus them down, but this is kind of me not realizing how close I am to actually defeating them, because now that we do have another army coming in on the ships, I don't really need to do that. And luckily I'm going to work that out by the next turn and not do that plan. Just telling you how bad my plans were because they're going to look better in practice. You can see I'm shipping out there to grab some trade piracy. That's our main source of trade income at the moment, stealing other people's trade. And here we are with a very bad naval auto-resolve. I tried to take down this little Josei fleet. I thought I have overpowering amounts of ships here, but we took a whole bunch of damage and actually lost a ship in the process. We've captured a bunch of their ships though. If I can ever get rich, I can repair them, but you can see the economy is knocked off the edge by me having all those ships. We successfully make the landing, and I also ally with the nearby Imperials, the Numata, so that will make things easier for us here. I've also got an alliance with the guys to their west, so we're nice and allied up in this sector. Now, because we don't have to go back with the main force, we are instead going to go forwards, and the manner in which I'll go forwards is going to be a little bit cheeky. You can see I've used my horsemen to do a siege on the castle so that I can then attack the smaller army outside. However, they run away, so we don't actually fight them now. We're just going to sit here and do the siege. Luckily, I've ended up close enough to the besieging group that if the enemy sally, we'll effectively get everything together. Would be nice if they were in one stack because the artillery is going to get messed up, but they're not, and as it happens, they're also not going to sally. Down at that Josei place, I'm naval invading. I auto-resolve the town after a really good balance bar comes up, but this was one of the trick balance bars and we lose a bunch of stuff right there. Doesn't matter too much in this case. I'm going to make another vassal so we can just move right on. I don't want to have to bother with public order here and leave units behind, anything like that. So that army will now move north, and actually this area is secure, so they'll help us face off against the north in general now. Speaking of help, our allies come over to this siege at the castle at Kai, and now we can use them as mass sacrifices in this auto-resolve attack. The balance bar is great. We actually do take big casualties again, considering the balance bar, but the good news is our allies seem to take the brunt of the casualties. Our army is looking fine after that, and all of the units lost were among our allies, and that's fine, doesn't matter to us. Boom, a free castle capture. Good stuff, and a free Nagaoka stack taken out as well. The next territory to the north is owned by another Imperial faction, the Tekayama, so while there's more Nagaoka stuff up there, it's kind of far away and annoying to go after, so I didn't really feel like going up there with the main force. I'm going to start bringing it back, and we're going to have some reason to bring it back, because at this stage in the campaign, diplomatic relations began to break down. I wonder if it's because we're in the post-game. We start getting a lot of heat from the other Imperial factions. Here we've got the Tagatori, the big green faction in the middle of the map, declaring war on my vassal, the Wakayama, so I'm going to support my vassal and join the war, even though we have no hope of actually fighting in it. But then more importantly we get this war. The other vassal I just made, the Odawara, get declared war upon by the ally I just made, the Numata. Not really sure what's happening here, but they're trying to get rid of them. And they'll have to go through us by the looks of things. So now we're actually back at war over here after me just saying that the area was secure. Our vassals barely have any troops, so they're not going to do much on their own. Annoyingly, this war declaration ended up putting this fleet in a naval attrition zone at the start of the turn, which is when the attrition is calculated. So we just lost a bunch of hull strength on one of our main fleets. Inconvenient. You can see that the army I recently landed can be used now to fight the Numata, so it's very handy that I was able to bring them over in time for this, even though it was their arrival actually that caused this to happen technically. Something I besieged Musashi port. We're also going to move this fleet out of the port's gun range. I considered just shooting at the guns because you can take them out with your navy, but I just don't know how many shots it takes. I didn't want to risk it, so we'll just leave them and stay away from the area. As for the Tagatori war, they control like everything back over here with our key peninsula stuff. We've got a few troops here who are left over from fighting rebels. I'm going to build up a little garrison at this castle just so it's not completely easy for the enemy to kick us out here. But they're a big enough faction that they could come at us with like 3 or 4 armies and just kill us if they really wanted to. We shall see. Now I get a peace treaty with the Josei since they offered, and I can't even see the Josei anymore actually. I don't know where their territory is. It's up the coast I guess, so Now we'll just not be at war with them to make things seem a little bit nicer. The Numata in their turn didn't do anything, by the way, so we're back in the same situation in our turn, and you can see the balance bar at Musashi Port's really good, suspiciously good. I moved over a few reinforcements, so maybe that's why it improved, but it seemed to improve too much, and I was like, is this balance bar just going to kill all of those already weakened spear lever units I have in that main stack? And I was almost shocked to see how much damage it did to us actually. So yeah, these balance bars are tricking me over and over again, and even though I know they're tricking me, I just can't resist their time-saving charms. So we're going to take massive losses and take Musashi Port, which, as you might have noted there, has something like 200,000 public order. Not sure what's going on, but that's going to help us out. They really like us in this area. So that's that. That secures a pretty decent setup for defense from both the north and south with our little sliver of territory. Our main force is going to start coming back to help, and I grabbed an alliance with Takayama to the north of Kai. So Kai we can kind of ignore now, it's surrounded by our vassals and allies, and we'll focus on this narrower area with all of the forces we have. And we do have enough forces to hold this area down pretty good, it's just attacking that's in question. Benefiting us greatly though, is the fact that nothing's really happened on our northern border. We've been bordering the Nagaoka and Aizu in particular for a long time, but they haven't attacked us. I'm not sure what they're doing up there, so I felt pretty safe doing this. I'm going to take virtually all of our defending units in the Musashi area, put them together into an army, and go after the Numata. Then we have a new war, it's the Fukui, not to be confused with the Fukue from early in the campaign. Not sure who these guys are, but they've decided to declare war on us. We probably don't border them. I feel like I know all the factions that border me, but not the rest, so they're somewhere, and maybe they'll come kill us. I think they're somewhere in the middle of the map. We'll just ignore that until it goes wrong. Now here we are moving on to start the siege of the Numata castle. They've got plenty of stuff inside, well defended, so I figured I'll just siege them out. I'll leave it under siege, see if they sally or anything like that. Now there is actually a Nagaoka invasion threatening to come in up at the top of Musashi province, and our returning main force is going to be diverted to deal with that. We can hide them here and be ready to cross that bridge to get towards them, or if they cross the bridge, to defend against them. In the next turn we see that the latter is what happened. They've crossed the bridge, which is annoying because it means I can't get onto the bridge to defend against them. But it does mean they're going to have to walk through this ambush area to get down into my territory, so we'll set up the ambush and just sit and wait. Meanwhile, we'll also sit and wait down here, so now the enemy need to do something stupid to allow me to win some victories. On the way, I got this peace treaty with the Takatori, so nothing happened in that war, for now at least. They accepted peace in exchange for 10 turns of military access. Kind of pointless, but fine. Then we get a new war. Some punk faction, a one-region Imperial faction, decides to declare war on me. Not quite sure what the plan there is, not even sure who they are or where they came from. They're too small to appear on the minimap, I expect, but there you go, they might show up at some point. You can see the Nagaoka actually went back rather than walking into my ambush. Annoying, but it does allow me to take the bridge and start pursuing them if we need to. And then another war. I don't know why this keeps happening. Everybody hates me, probably because I keep selling my people as slaves to the Westerners and are just simping far too hard to Europeans in general. But this time it's the Awaji Sumamoto who control the area just to the west of our little key bastion, so that area in particular is now under threat again. That's okay, since we still have the army we made to fight the Takatori standing around there. I finally got the money I needed to repair this port, but by this point, some guy has come and besieged it. It only takes one ship from any of the millions of factions we're at war with to come and besiege it, and then we can't trade. I need to make a new fleet over there to deal with that really, but it takes a lot of time and money to do that in this mod. And while we sometimes have the money, I mostly spend it on getting new troops at the front line or building up better defenses, so we're kind of just doing the no trading challenge run. Makes it a bit more challenging anyway, at least. As you can see, the Nagaoka army has just carried on walking south down the road, so they've kind of bypassed my main force. We've been outmaneuvered. Even if we walk after them, they'll just keep walking forwards and hit our defenses. And we're being punished here for not dealing with the Numata earlier, because the army that would have been at Musashi and been in a position to stop the Nagaoka is stuck down there doing that siege, which is no good to anyone. What I could do here is do the classic Devon style strategy of ignoring things defensively and just going to attack with our main force. That might cause the enemy to turn back, or it might allow me to end the war, which is also what I'm trying to do right here. There. At the we might be able to come to an agreement stage, which usually means no in Shogun 2. It kind of tricks you into thinking you can negotiate with factions sometimes. In this case, they aren't interested in an agreement. What I'm going to do instead is put another ambush on the road and start pursuing the enemy in case they come back. Not very good, but this isn't a very good time for offensive combat either, because it's about to be winter. That will make defending our territory easier if we can get the enemy to be kited onto things and get them to walk around and stuff like that. It also gives us further incentive to finish this siege right here, right now, because it's going to start giving us attrition if we keep besieging them down, and we do need a few more turns to force them to surrender. As it happens, that balance bar was pretty good, and even though I've been hurt before, we're going to try this again. I was happy to see my vassals will be helping me. I thought maybe they'll just die like that other auto-resolve earlier. Actually, no one really died. This time, the balance bar was not lying to us. We actually got a very clean attack, and I definitely should have just done that way earlier. So now the Nomata's main territory is out the window. They've got another one nearby, but handily enough, that's their only one, so we can end the war right now with the vassalization deal. Will they just betray me? Well, probably, but I couldn't be bothered to go after this territory, especially because getting them off the table for now allows us to focus on going back to deal with any potential antics from this currently ongoing Nagaoka situation. So we'll grab the army inside the castle and immediately start walking back. Luckily this place is 100% Imperial, so we don't need to worry too much about public order. That's the massive upside of attacking your own allies. Speaking of attacking your own allies, it's our old ally, the Tekatori, who we just got that peace treaty with, breaking the treaty in order to go back to war with us. Well, they didn't do anything the last time they were at war with us, so maybe not this time, but I do get the distinct feeling that something's going to go down in the middle of the map as everybody declares war on us there. For now, you can see the Nagaoka are walking towards Musashi, although I had a hunch they might be going for Musashi Fields. That would be a sneaky move if they just walked past the castle and took Musashi Fields. We are able to fully garrison Musashi. Not that we actually want to, it's more efficient here to split this army in half and have some of it defend Musashi Port, because then the garrisons of both places will cause us to still have a full stack. So just making good use of the freely spawned units, which even though they're worse than your regular units, they're good enough, especially as sacrifices. Meanwhile, the main force is not going to pursue, because we can instead block off what we can now see of the Aizu. The Aizu do have a load of stuff right next to our border. Could have been there the whole time for all I know, they're just not using it. So we're going to block one of those bridges to make it harder for them to use it. Here we are in the next turn. You can see the Nagaoka did indeed besiege Musashi, so that's fine. That's the easiest to defend place they could have attacked in this area, so thank you very much for that. We're just going to do nothing. They didn't make a siege attack, but we want to wait and see if they do, since sallying will not be all that advantageous. And actually, they do this in the worst possible way. They move their reinforcements somewhere else, and then they siege attack, so they've screwed themselves over there. And that balance bar is looking pretty good for us, especially if the balance bar at all takes into account there being a castle here, which I think it doesn't in Shogun 2. As you can see though, I am being betrayed by the balance bar for the billionth time. It's not a very good result, not terrible, but there are two main problems. We did lose a bunch of units that I can't really re-recruit easily because of our finances and stuff, but perhaps more importantly, the enemy didn't totally die. In a siege like that, you would expect them to get annihilated, meaning you could easily counterattack, but right now, we're going to counterattack into a situation where we don't have an advantage if we go to try and finish them off in our turn. And I didn't like the sound of that, so I'm just going to save scum and go back to that quick save I just made in order to show the auto-resolve algorithm how it's done and hopefully just annihilate the enemy army so we can immediately counterattack with basically nothing left to stop us. Well, I haven't done it yet, so we'll see if I eat my words at the start of the next part.